What's up, world? Let me tell you about this beard growth oil I got from 12 tribes on Earth. 8 ounces of oily goodness with a nozzle that prevents sprays and spills, and soft ingredients that make it perfect addition to anyone's morning routine. From coconut to castor, all these oils are hand chosen. After using this herbal blend, the biggest thing I noticed is how soft and how strong my hair was, and how good I feel. Pick up your bottle today and make your beard the star of the show.
Shalom, family. Good to see everyone here. Hope you're doing well. Just before I came on here, I found out 6 more soldiers they're saying have lost their lives. So I'm going to have to look into that more when I'm done. But they were talking about that on the news. I still think that's awfully low for all the bombing that has taken place over there. But it is what it is. So, everybody, we're going to talk about these 3 demands that Iran recently came in the media to put on the United States if they want to end this war. So, one of the demands, and I'm going to let you listen to it, is they want money. So, in other words, reparations for all the damage you have done to their country. They want to be compensated for the damage. So, that's one of the 3. And y'all, we'll see if the United States will react at all, you know? And I'm also interested in hearing how the conversation between Condoleezza Rice and Donald Trump went. He's been awfully silent about that, but we shall see what comes out. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Shalom to everybody in the chat. Okay. Okay. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. No, I agree with that, one of many ancestral shadows. If it was me, I wouldn't get involved. And number 2, look at what Donald Trump did to Black women like Condoleezza Rice. Why do you think over 800,000 lost their jobs? That's Donald Trump and all that DEI. And a lot of these women also worked for the federal government when he was firing people left and right and using the excuse of DEI to get rid of them. He had no need for Black women then. Now he's in over his head with this war that never should have started. And so look at who he first brings to the White House. Enough said. You know, isn't this typical? Yes, it is. All right, y'all. Thank you for the ones. All right, let's get started.
Middle East said absolutely nothing. No video, no speech, no press conference. Not a single word. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, had been appointed on March 8th. His own succession rally happened in Tehran, and he was not there. Supporters stood in a crowd holding up a photograph of him because there was nothing else to hold. Then, today, Thursday, March 12th, he finally broke his silence. And what he said did not bring this war closer to ending. It made it impossible in a written statement read aloud by a state TV anchor, because the man himself still has not appeared on camera. Mojtaba Khamenei delivered 4 declarations that every government on earth is now processing with alarm. Number 1, the Strait of Hormuz must remain closed. He called it, and I am quoting directly here, a tool to pressure the enemy. Number 2, all US military bases in the Middle East must shut down immediately. And if they do not, quote, those bases will be attacked. Number 3, Iran has studied the opening of brand new war fronts, ones where, in his words, the enemy has little experience and is highly vulnerable. And number 4, the 3 conditions Iran demands before this war ends. Those 3 conditions are the reason I made this video today. Because when you read them carefully, when you understand what Iran is actually asking for and what Washington can never agree to, you realize this is not a war moving toward a negotiated end. This is a war being locked into a longer, more dangerous phase. Before I break down exactly what those 3 demands are, why each one is a red line for the United States, and what happens to oil prices, your groceries, and the global economy if this war has no visible exit, hit the subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. This story is moving faster than almost anything I have covered. And what happens in the next 72 hours will determine whether diplomatic back channels can pull this back from the edge. You need to be here when the next development breaks. Let me show you exactly what is in that statement. And more importantly, let me show you what the headlines are not telling you, what Mojtaba Khamenei actually said, word by word. Quick context first. Mojtaba Khamenei, 56 years old, was selected as Iran's 3rd supreme leader on March 8th, 10 days after his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in US-Israeli airstrikes on February 28th. The same strike that killed his father also killed his mother, his wife, and his son. He himself sustained leg injuries, including a fractured foot, in that same attack. He has not appeared publicly since. Now, when a head of state communicates only through a written statement read by a TV anchor after 4 days of total silence, every word in that statement carries enormous weight. Intelligence agencies around the world do not just read what was said. They analyze what was included, what was left out, the order in which points were made, and the specific language chosen.
That means at least one side is not telling the truth.
Statement the way analysts are walking
Thanks
through
to
it right
satellites
now.
constantly
Point
monitoring
1.
naval movements,
He
we can
opened
investigate
with
the
a
truth.
vow of revenge.
In
Iran will not
2026,
refrain
hitting an aircraft
from
carrier is not something that
avenging
can be
the blood
hidden
of its
easily.
martyrs. He specifically
Iran said
mentioned
multiple
a
ballistic
strike on a
missiles
girls'
struck the
school
ship,
in
which, if
Minab in
true,
southern
would
Iran
have caused enormous
accept that its nuclear program will continue.
Good afternoon. Iran has outlined 3 key conditions for ending the ongoing conflict in the region, according to Al Jazeera. President Masoud Pezeshkian says any path to peace must begin with international recognition of Iran's rights, compensation for war-related damages, and firm guarantees that Iran will not face further attacks. In a statement released on March the 11th, the Iranian leader blamed the outbreak of the war on what he called the actions of Israel and the United States. He said the conflict can only be resolved if Iran's sovereignty and legitimate rights are formally acknowledged by the international community. President Pezeshkian also repeated the position during recent talks with leaders from Russia and Pakistan. He stressed that while Iran supports regional stability, a lasting ceasefire will depend on clear commitments that future aggression will be prevented. The remarks come as diplomatic efforts intensify, with Russia urging all sides to halt fighting and work towards de-escalation.
The fact of the matter is that Iranians are not in a hurry, in my assessment, to end this war. So there was panic, and then Bahrain, it moved a resolution at the UN Security Council. This happened on the 11th of March. That the council, the key issue in this was, in the resolution was that Iran should not hit the GCC countries. So there this resolution was passed, but immediately after that, the Russian ambassador has come out openly in support of Iran. The ambassador has said that if Iran is hit, then hitting back at the military target for Iran is a legitimate target. Now, as far as Netanyahu and Israel is concerned, I mean, the Indians I've always said that Israelis' capabilities are overblown. Now, what is Netanyahu doing? Netanyahu has reached out to China and he's asking China that you calm the things with Iran. We don't want to fight any further. So in all this, the Iranian president, he spoke with Russia, he spoke with the Pakistani president also, and he has put out 4 conditions for Iran's ceasefire. He has said that there is a need to recognize Iran's legitimate rights. Then there should be a payment of reparations. Yes. Then there should be international guarantees against any future American and Israel aggression. 3 guarantees. The fact of the matter is that Iranians are not in a hurry, in my assessment, to end this war. They will bleed America, they'll bleed Israel more because they have that capability, they have the upper hand, they have the dominance till they get what they desire for a permanent peace.
In a dramatic new statement, Masoud Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, has laid down 3 strict conditions to end the war. According to Iran, there will be no ceasefire unless these demands are met. The latest message from President Masoud Pezeshkian came after discussions with leaders from Russia and Pakistan and was posted publicly on X, Twitter. In the statement, Iran accused the Zionist regime and the United States of igniting the war and said the conflict can only end through a permanent political resolution, not a temporary ceasefire. According to Tehran, there are 3 non-negotiable conditions. Demand number 1, recognition of Iran's rights. First, Iran says the world must recognize its legitimate rights. In diplomatic terms, this is widely interpreted as Iran's right to continue nuclear enrichment for peaceful purposes under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran has repeatedly insisted that it will never abandon its nuclear program, even though it maintains the program is not meant for nuclear weapons. Beyond nuclear technology, analysts say this demand could also imply recognition of Iran's broader regional influence in the Middle East. Demand number 2, reparations. The second demand is financial compensation. Iran says the United States and Israel must pay reparations for damages caused by the ongoing bombardment, including civilian casualties, destroyed infrastructure, and economic losses. This demand dramatically raises the stakes because it would mean the attacking countries must accept responsibility for the war's destruction. Demand number 3, guarantees against future attacks. The third demand may be the most complicated. Iran wants binding international guarantees that the US or Israel will never launch attacks again. These guarantees could potentially involve the United Nations or major global powers acting as security guarantors. Iran has specifically warned that Israel might resume strikes even after a ceasefire, which is why Tehran says temporary pauses are not enough. They want a permanent end to the war. Why Iran is taking a hard line? Iran has already rejected proposals for an unconditional ceasefire or any deal that resembles unconditional surrender. Those terms were reportedly floated by Donald Trump, but Iranian officials say negotiating while attacks continue makes no sense. What U.S. intelligence says? According to reports from Reuters, U.S. intelligence believes that despite weeks of heavy bombardment, Iran's leadership structure remains largely intact. The government still controls the country, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps continues to command military operations.
Iran's President Pezeshkian sets conditions for ending the war. In a post on X today, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian addressed ongoing efforts to achieve peace amid regional conflict. He wrote, "Talking to the leaders of Russia and Pakistan, I reaffirmed Iran's commitment to peace in the region. The only way to end this war, ignited by the Zionist regime and US, is recognizing Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future aggression." President Pezeshkian's remarks came as he spoke with the leaders of Russia and Pakistan about the escalating conflict involving Iran, the United States, and Israel. In his message, he reiterated Tehran's commitment to peace and outlined what he described as the necessary conditions to bring the war to an end: official recognition of Iran's rights, payment of reparations for damage caused, and firm international guarantees to prevent future aggression. These comments were posted as diplomatic efforts continue in the region, with multiple countries seeking to mediate and limit the scope of the conflict. Analysts say Pezeshkian's demands reflect Tehran's position that any ceasefire must include strong security assurances and acknowledgement of its grievances.
Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has laid out 3 conditions for ending the conflict with Israel and the United States. According to Iranian officials, these conditions were presented during discussions with the leaders of Russia and Pakistan. Tehran also emphasized that its position on these demands is firm. After the talks with the Russian and Pakistani leaders, Pezeshkian shared a post on social media platform X where he reiterated Iran's stance during those discussions. He claimed that the current conflict was primarily provoked by what he described as the Zionist leadership and the United States. One of the conditions outlined by the Iranian president is that Iran's legitimate rights must be recognized within the international community. The second demand calls for compensation for the damages Iran says it suffered during the recent attacks. The third condition requires strong international guarantees to ensure that no similar attacks occur in the future. These remarks come at a time when diplomatic efforts are intensifying worldwide to prevent the conflict from escalating further. It's Steve from Steve Daily.
Iran just told the world exactly what it wants to stop the war. Iranian President Pezeshkian revealed 3 demands to end the war against the U.S. and Israel.
Okay. I don't think he's asking for anything unreasonable. You know, they should do all of those things. If the country want recognition in the international world, why not? If they want compensation, I mean, it is a war that was unprovoked. So it's not unreasonable for them to want their infrastructure fixed. You know, a lot of damage has been done. And yeah, I mean, look, negotiating with Donald Trump is a joke. It's a joke. See, Donald Trump wants to negotiate in a way where he looked like he won. It's very disingenuous. It's just straight up lies. That's what he wants. He wants to negotiate, but he gets to run to the media and say he won the war, you know, we won the war, and it just lies. You know, that's all this man does. He wakes up every day, gets in front of the camera, and just lie to everybody. And he does the crap all the time. And it is irritating, y'all. It is very irritating that he does that. But this is who Donald Trump is. Now, look at what they're up against. They're up against 2 countries that they tried in the past to negotiate with by doing ceasefires, and both US and Israel, even when they were talking about, you know, the ceasefire between the countries, they bombed them anyway. So, yeah, you know, you would have to get other countries involved, and it seemed like they want Russia and Pakistan to be part of this deal. You know, that's why he was, and that's why I don't understand why Donald Trump is talking to Russia, talking to Putin, when it's very clear at the end of the day, they back Iran. They don't back the US and what they did. They back Iran. Come on. But yeah, I doubt if the US will meet any of these conditions, you know, because at the end of the day, although it is reasonable, if they meet these conditions, that is a loss for the US. And Donald Trump is not going to take a loss. He'll keep this thing going just to save face. So, too much pride. And you know how it is. You can't reason with people with too much pride at all. Yeah, well, Iran said that this war can go on for the next 10 years. That's what they said. They're not in no hurry to end it. So that's where it stands, y'all. We'll see. You know, so far they have not reacted. They may not react or respond to Iran at all. They may not do it at all. Mhm. Yeah, well, China is getting their people out of there. That's how you know China already spoke up. They're going to join the war. See, they're doing it the smart way. Before they dive in and help Iran, they're getting their people out of there. So once they get their people out, you'll know because China will be joining Iran in the bombing. They already said they would. You know, there are some people mad online because they're seeing too many people from the US siding with Iran. I was looking at that also today. But yeah, there are some people in this country that are upset seeing that. And, you know, it's just people seeing an injustice and responding to it. That's all. But yeah, you'll see that. They're noticing. And I'm sure Donald Trump is noticing too. You know, there's a lot of people right here in his country that don't agree with America, and they are speaking out and they're in favor of Iran in this whole thing, and they sure don't like it. Yeah, they are. I don't know why, you know, all the bases are bombed out over there. The only other reason they got Brit Ever After 64. The only other reason I can think of is they're sending in ground troops, which I think would be a blunder. And you know, and at this point, I don't trust the US to tell the truth. If you send ground troops in there and you lose a lot of them, they'll just get in the media and tell you they only lost 7 people in the ground war. You know, they'll get on there and tell you some crap like that. Well, I think when this is all said and done, Israel won't be alone because I think the US is not going to have the same credibility in the world. Not that they had a lot under Donald Trump, but the little bit they had will be gone. Nobody's going to ever trust the US again. Nobody's going to ever follow the leadership of the United States. Nobody is going to give you another chance after seeing this. Nobody's going to give you a chance. You're really you really put your foot in it this time. And I don't think the US is going to be able to recover from this. You know, you'll be sitting in front of people trying to, because y'all love dominating, trying to dominate. And these countries are not going to allow you to do it because they see that it is possible for a smaller country to beat two giants like a bitch. That's what they see. In fact, that's what a lot of people see. Mhm. Yeah, well, Russia said that um, Iran is their ally, and they're gonna get behind Iran, and China made a commitment to physically get involved in the war. Now, North Korea, the only thing I know so far, Pam, is they just spoke up against the war, but they did not say what they would do as far as getting involved in the war, but they did speak out against the US and Israel for attacking Iran. Yeah, it's shameful. It's shameful, you know, and you can tell. And you know what? And I was listening to Iran a little earlier, and you can tell Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, his whole administration don't have any experience, and they don't, and it's showing. It's showing that they don't know what the hell they're doing. And then Donald Trump made a comment yesterday talking about for people to get some balls and go through the Straits of Hormuz, and you know they already put mines in the water. That's what he said. Grow some ball and go through there. Come on. If they go through there, they number one, many of the insurance companies have dropped the insurance on those ships. So if they go through there and their ship blow up or catch on fire, are you going to pay for it, Donald Trump? I doubt if you will. He's not going to pay for anything. Yeah, well, a lot of people are noticing how it experienced. Remember, Donald Trump is a bone spurs man. He probably got more expertise in having bone spurs than running any type of war. And that's not the job of the president anyway. That's what your generals are supposed to do. But we know how many of them they fired. And Pete Hegseth, he don't know what to do, y'all. Come on. He doesn't know. He sounds just as silly as Donald Trump. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. I got one more final live coming up at 5:45. So I will see you then. Shalom, family.